I just can't get used to the feeling of being teleported. Makes the hair on my arms stand on end. Today, I've beamed onto the bridge of a star-class space cruiser to take a galactic journey through science fiction and science fantasy. Take this thing to full speed. Sci-fi and science fantasy stories allow us the opportunity to ask, what if? In the world we live in now, in the future, or even a world that's unreal. Readers are shown the impact of scientific and technological possibilities on humans, animals, and the environment. They may be transported to far-off universes. In the near future, say 2030, or the far future of 3095. Readers expand their imaginations as they encounter unusual characters, analyze ethically challenging situations, and think through alternatives to life. No matter how far-fetched these stories seem, readers find themselves wondering, what if? Settings and events in science fiction and science fantasy are built upon well-known scientific facts and principles, but the author's imagination extends and expands those concepts. We all know that it's possible to travel to the moon, but in sci-fi stories, the characters might travel in a spaceship beyond our galaxy, where they can easily defy gravity. Science fantasy, like science fiction, has scientific principles as its foundation, but also blends elements of mythology and traditional fantasy. In a science fantasy story, the characters might travel on a star to a parallel universe where they meet their otherworldly selves. Science fantasy often forms the basis for many of our computer games. In both science fiction and science fantasy, authors seldom get into the nuts and bolts of science. But because the authors include just enough scientific truth, we believe the story is probable. Characters in science fiction and science fantasy may be humans, cyborgs, androids, or some other form of life altogether. A major theme of science fiction and science fantasy is the impact of technology on humans and other life forms. This theme is depicted with three common plots: altered states of being, life in the future, and survivalism. Come check this out. I love it in here. Holosuite, Program 34C. In stories that feature altered states of being, authors depict worlds filled with robots and genetically altered humans. You will find that communication often crosses time and space in the form of mind control, ESP, telekinesis, and telepathy. I could just tell what you're thinking. And featured characters in the story must learn to adapt or change their environments. Stories about altered states of being can leave the reader pondering the real value of life and science. Holosuite, end program. Life in the future stories examine the moral and ethical dilemmas of, well, life in the future. Timeless battles are waged for aggression and peace. The lines of competition and cooperation are blurred, and heroes find themselves partnering with enemies in the face of alien invasions, runaway computers bent on taking over the world. These stories challenge the reader to evaluate their individual commitment, ethical behavior, quality of life, and what it means to be human, even if everyone else around you is an android. Holosuite, Program 15B. Survival stories are set in a post-apocalyptic world, a world that has come to an end and has been rebuilt. Often, these worlds have been plagued by such events as nuclear war, overcrowding, pollution, extinction, even shortages of food and fuel. Characters struggle to survive on Earth, and some even consider fleeing to outer space. Those who stay try to make life more livable by overcoming science, nature, and corrupt governments. Survival stories offer a scientific justification for why the setting is so unusual. Like surviving a nuclear war is the only reason someone would be dressed like this. Holosuite, end program. Science fiction and science fantasy belong to the genre of fantasy. Fantasy asks universal questions concerning the struggle of good versus evil, the humanity of people, and the meaning of life and death. It's concerned with people, places, or events in imagined worlds, providing readers with the opportunity to think critically about the story, themselves, and their place in the world. Sci-fi and science fantasy can be found in the fiction section of your library. But if you can't find what you're looking for, be sure to ask your librarian. While these stories may not take you to where no man has gone before, they will take you to some pretty cool places. And at least you won't have to use a teleporter. Okay, I'm ready to go now. Scooter, ready for teleport.